The sewing machine hummed softly in the small attic room as rain tapped against the window. Clara Evans, 25, stitched tiny clothes for the twin babies sleeping beside her, both left at her doorstep 3 years ago. Her hands trembled from exhaustion, but her smile never faded. One night, headlights flashed through her window. A black car stopped outside. The man who stepped out carried the same birthmark as one of the twins. Stay. This touching story will break and heal your heart. Clara Evans worked as a young seamstress in a small town, barely making ends meet but known throughout the neighborhood for her gentle heart and skilled hands. 3 years ago, on a freezing November night, she found twin infants, abandoned, cold, and crying, in a wicker basket near her doorstep, wrapped only in thin blankets. Despite having nothing, despite the fear and uncertainty that gripped her chest, she took them in without hesitation. She named them Liam and Lucy, giving them the family names she'd always dreamed of using someday. Her days became a careful rhythm, stitching by dawn's first light, feeding the twins warm milk and mashed fruits, changing diapers between hemming dresses, sewing through the night under a single lamp while they slept peacefully nearby. Her world was humble, a cramped attic apartment above a grocery store, furniture salvaged from street corners, toys made from fabric scraps, but it was filled with laughter, gentle lullabies, and a love so fierce it made up for everything they lacked. The twins grew into bright, curious 3-year-olds. Liam had dark curls and loved building towers from wooden spools. Lucy had lighter hair and would sing made-up songs while Clara worked. They were her everything. One Thursday evening, as Clara finished stitching a wedding dress by the window, a luxury car pulled up outside. Black, sleek, impossibly out of place on their worn cobblestone street. A tall man in a tailored charcoal suit stepped out. Ethan Ward, early 30s, moved with the controlled grace of someone accustomed to boardrooms and power. But when his eyes fell on the twins' faces through the shop window, Liam stacking spools, Lucy singing, he froze completely. His hand reached toward the glass as if pulled by invisible strings. Something about them, the curve of Lucy's smile, the way Liam tilted his head, felt hauntingly, impossibly familiar. Clara noticed him staring and instinctively pulled the twins closer. He blinked, seeming to catch himself, then straightened his suit and walked toward the door. The bell chimed. "Can I help you?" Clara asked, voice steady despite her racing heart. Ethan's gaze swept the room. The ancient sewing machine, the children's drawings taped to walls, the twins now hiding shyly behind Clara's skirt, before settling on her face. "I need custom suits," he said, voice tight. "Several. For business." Clara studied him carefully. Men like this didn't come to seamstresses in attics. They had tailors in Milan, designers on speed dial. "I'm sure there are better—" "You came highly recommended," he interrupted, still watching the twins from the corner of his eye. She hesitated, then nodded slowly. "All right. I'll need measurements." As she worked, taking numbers and making notes, Ethan kept glancing at Liam and Lucy. Once his hand trembled so badly she had to repeat a measurement. "Are you all right?" she asked. "Fine," he said quickly, too quickly. "They're beautiful children." "Thank you." Clara's voice softened with pride. "They're my world." Something flickered across Ethan's face. Grief, longing, recognition, before he masked it behind a polite smile. He left with a business card and a promise to return. But as his car disappeared into the evening fog, Clara couldn't shake the feeling that he hadn't come for suits at all. Ethan returned 3 days later, then again 2 days after that. Each time he ordered another suit, asked another question, stayed a little longer. He'd watch Clara work, the precision of her stitches, the patience in her voice as she explained colors to Lucy, the way she'd pause mid-seam to kiss Liam's scraped knee. He'd sit in the worn armchair by the window, pretending to review contracts on his phone, but his eyes always drifted back to the twins. Gradually, they began to talk. About work, about dreams, about loss. Clara told him about finding the babies, about the choice to keep them despite having nothing to offer but love. "Everyone said I was crazy," she admitted, threading a needle. "Maybe I was, but the moment I held them, I knew. They were mine to protect." Ethan listened silently, jaw clenched, pain flickering in his eyes like lightning behind storm clouds. One rainy afternoon, while the twins napped on a blanket fort they'd built, Ethan finally spoke the truth he'd been carrying. "My wife died 3 years ago," he said quietly, staring at his hands. "She was giving birth to twins." Clara's needle stopped mid-stitch. "I was overseas, closing a deal I thought mattered more than anything." His voice cracked. "By the time I got to the hospital, she was gone. The babies were in NICU. So small, so fragile. I couldn't—" He pressed his palms against his eyes. "I couldn't look at them without seeing what I'd lost, what I'd failed to protect. Ethan, my sister-in-law was there. She said she'd care for them while I processed everything. I signed temporary papers. I was drowning, Clara. I couldn't breathe, couldn't think. When I finally came back for them, a week later, she was gone, disappeared. The baby's with her." Clara's hand covered her mouth. "I searched everywhere," Ethan continued, tears streaming now. "Police, private investigators, every resource I had. Nothing. She'd vanished completely. I thought—" His voice broke entirely. "I thought they were dead, that I'd lost everything." The room fell silent except for the rain and the soft breathing of sleeping children. "That birthmark on Liam's shoulder," Ethan whispered, looking toward the blanket fort. "My son had the same one, in the exact same place." Clara's world tilted. The twins she'd raised, loved, sacrificed everything for. They were his. They'd been his all along. "I had DNA tests run," Ethan admitted. "Last week. I'm sorry, I should have asked, but I needed to know. Clara, they're mine. Liam and Lucy are my children." She stood abruptly, pacing to the window, heart hammering. Relief and dread warred inside her chest. They had a father who'd been searching, grieving, desperate, a father who could take them away. "What do you want?" she asked, voice barely audible. Ethan stood slowly, approaching her like she was something fragile. "I want what's best for them." "Which is?" He looked at the blanket fort, at the drawings on the walls, at the worn teddy bear Lucy clutched even in sleep. "I don't know anymore," he admitted. "I thought I did. But then I saw you with them. The way they light up when you walk in. The way they call you Mama." Clara's tears fell freely now. "They're not just alive," Ethan said softly. "They're loved because of you." She turned to face him, voice trembling. "I didn't know. I swear I didn't know they were yours. If I had—" "You saved them," he interrupted gently. "When I couldn't, when no one else would." They stood there, two broken people connected by the sleeping children between them, neither knowing what came next. Keep watching, because what Ethan decides next will test both love and loyalty. 2 weeks later, a lawyer knocked on Clara's door. Ethan Ward was filing for full custody. Clara's world shattered. She read the papers with shaking hands, legal terms, parental rights, DNA evidence, everything she'd feared, typed in cold official language. Within days, the case escalated. Ethan's legal team moved with ruthless efficiency, presenting evidence. His biological parentage, his financial stability, his ability to provide education, health care, opportunities Clara could never afford. Clara hired a small-town attorney with kind eyes and limited resources. They did their best, arguing for the bond she'd built, the years of caregiving, the emotional attachment. But money talked louder. The preliminary hearing was brutal. Ethan sat across the courtroom in a perfect suit, surrounded by lawyers, while Clara wore her only dress, the one she'd sewn herself years ago. The judge reviewed documents, asked questions, and scheduled a follow-up hearing to determine permanent custody. That afternoon, Ethan's lawyer offered Clara a settlement: $200,000, a new apartment, job placement assistance. In exchange, she'd relinquish all parental claims. Clara tore the check in half. "They're not a transaction," she said, voice steady despite her tears. "They're my children." The custody battle consumed everything. Clara worked double shifts, sewing through exhaustion to afford legal fees. The twins sensed something wrong. They grew clingy, asking why they couldn't see the nice man anymore. The court-ordered visits were agony. Ethan would arrive with expensive toys, take the twins to museums and parks, then return them to Clara's tiny apartment where reality waited. Liam asked one night, Why does Mr. Ethan cry when he hugs us? Clara had no answer. The final hearing arrived on a gray October morning. The courtroom filled, Ethan's team on one side, Clara alone on the other. The twins sat in a waiting room, supervised by a social worker. As proceedings began, the judge called for the children to be brought in. Standard procedure to observe their responses. Liam and Lucy entered holding hands, eyes wide and frightened. "Come here, sweethearts," the social worker said, guiding them toward Ethan's side of the room. But the moment Lucy saw Clara, she broke free and ran, arms outstretched, crying, "Mama!" Liam followed, both children launching themselves into Clara's arms, clinging desperately. "Don't make us leave," Lucy sobbed. "Please, Mama, please." Ethan stood frozen, watching his children, his own flesh and blood, reach for another woman with pure, unconditional love. The courtroom fell silent. Something inside Ethan cracked. Every defense, every justification, every argument his lawyers had prepared. He saw Clara holding the twins, their faces buried in her shoulders, and finally understood what he'd been too blinded by grief to see. They weren't being kept from him. They were being protected by the only mother they'd ever known. "Stop," Ethan said quietly. His lead lawyer turned. "Sir, stop the proceedings." Louder now. "I'm withdrawing the petition." Gasps rippled through the courtroom. "Mr. Ward, I said stop," Ethan's voice echoed off the walls. He looked at the judge. "I'm withdrawing. Immediately." The judge frowned. "Mr. Ward, are you certain? You have every legal right." "I don't care about my rights." Ethan's eyes locked on Clara and the twins. "I care about what's right." He walked out mid-hearing, past his lawyer's protests, past the reporters gathering outside, past everything he'd built this case on. That night he showed up at Clara's door. No suit, no guards, no lawyers. Just a father who'd finally understood what it meant to love. Clara opened the door, the twins already asleep inside. "I thought money could fix what I lost," Ethan said, voice raw. "I thought taking them back would make me whole again. But you already gave them what I couldn't. A mother's love, a real home, safety." Clara's eyes glistened. "I don't want to take them from you," he continued. His voice broke. "I want to learn how to be what they need, the way you already are." She stepped aside, opening the door wider. "Then let's stop fighting," she whispered, "and start being a family." Months passed like seasons healing a wound. Clara and the twins moved into a modest house. Not Ethan's mansion, but a place they chose together, with a backyard for playing and a sewing room with good light. Ethan visited daily. At first, the twins were cautious, confused by the shift. But slowly, through bedtime stories and playground visits, through burnt pancakes on Saturday mornings and patient explanations, they began to understand. "Why do you look like us?" Liam asked one evening, studying Ethan's face. Ethan glanced at Clara, who nodded encouragingly. He knelt down. "Because I'm your father, your first father. But Mama Clara, she's the one who saved you, loved you, raised you. She's your real mama." "Can we have both?" Lucy asked, small hand reaching for Clara's. "Yes," Clara whispered, pulling Lucy close. "Always both." Time wove them together in unexpected ways. Ethan learned to braid Lucy's hair. Poorly at first, then better. He taught Liam to ride a bike, running alongside until the training wheels came off. He sat beside Clara's sewing machine late at night, talking about everything and nothing while she worked. They weren't married, weren't romantic, but they were family in the truest sense. Co-parents, partners, friends who'd found each other through tragedy and transformation. Clara's business grew. Word spread about the seamstress who'd adopted abandoned twins, and orders flooded in. Wedding dresses, christening gowns, custom suits. Ethan quietly funded a small storefront, refusing to let her refuse. "You gave me my children back," he said simply. "Let me give you this." On the twins' 5th birthday, they threw a party in the backyard, modest but joyful, filled with neighborhood children, balloons, and a homemade cake Clara insisted on baking herself. As the sun set and the children ran through sprinklers, Ethan approached Clara with a small velvet box. She froze. "Ethan, I can't—" "It's not that," he said quickly, smiling. "Open it." Inside lay a golden thimble, delicately engraved with her initials and a date. the night she found the twins. You stitched their clothes when they had nothing, Ethan said softly, voice thick with emotion. You stitched their lives together when they were broken. And now, he looked at the twins, at the house, at the life they'd built. You've stitched all of us together. Clara's tears fell freely. She slipped the thimble onto her finger, holding it up to catch the fading sunlight. Welcome home, she whispered. Ethan smiled. A real smile, the first genuine one in years. I've been home for a while now. Behind them, Liam and Lucy shrieked with laughter, running through the grass. They crashed into Clara and Ethan simultaneously, soaking them both with sprinkler water. Group hug, Lucy demanded. They collapsed together in a tangle of arms and laughter. Four people who'd found each other through impossible circumstances, who'd chosen love over law, family over biology. As the stars emerged overhead, Clara looked at Ethan over the twins' heads. Thank you, she mouthed. He shook his head, eyes glistening. Thank you. The twins fell asleep between them on a blanket under the stars, hands intertwined, safe and loved and whole. If this touching story touched your heart, subscribe to Sue Stories for more emotional tales of love, family, and second chances.